Hey guys, welcome back to Ouch Mountain. You've heard us talk about our outdoor wood stove a few times, and today we're going to show you how it works and what it does for us. Y'all stay with us. So this is our outdoor wood stove. We bought our stove back in the winter of 2009, so we've had it about 13 years now, and we did a lot of research and looked at a lot of different companies. A lot of companies build these stoves, and we decided on a Heat Source 1 stove. I'm not sure they're still producing these now, but at the time it was a good, simple design, and it's worked pretty well for us for these 13 years. And so let's show you what we got. So under this panel is a blower fan that blows air across the fire in the firebox to keep the fire heated up and get it going really good. And that heats up the water in the water bladder that's here above the firebox. And it's like a 160-gallon bladder that holds all the water that gets heated up by this fire. So here's the thermostat, and right now it's showing 150 degrees. That's the water temperature that's in the bladder. There's a 160-gallon bladder that sits above the firebox. So the thermostat tells the fan blower when to kick on and when to kick off. And the way this is set is when the water temperature drops below 155 degrees, it kicks the fan on and gets the fire going really hot until the water temperature in the bladder reaches 160 degrees. At 160, it cuts back off, and it just continuously does that in a cycle. So what I'm going to show you next is the firebox, and let's take a look at it. So we have a pretty good little fire going. Need to put a little bit more in it today just to keep it going. The firebox itself is about 36 inches deep and 30 inches wide, and it holds a lot of firewood in that firebox. And right now the fan is running, so you can see that the flames are kind of getting fanned up, and the heat's going up. And it'll keep doing that until the water temperature in the bladder reaches 160 degrees. So I think that's all the wood I'm going to put on the fire right now. We'll fill it up again before bedtime. So our stove sits about 100 feet from the house, and the company said anywhere up to about 120 feet would be just fine. You do lose some efficiency the further away from the house you are, because the water loses heat on the way to the house and loses heat coming back to the wood stove to get reheated again. So the closer to the house it is, the better. However, it's nice to not have it real close to the house, because one of the good things we have is we don't have the ash and the smoke right up against the house. So another factor to consider about when you're deciding where to put the stove is the prevailing winds. So we situated the stove so that the winds pretty much always carry the smoke away from the house instead of toward the house, which is an important factor. Our outdoor wood stove saves us money in 3 different ways. The first way is it provides a radiant heat through our radiant tubing under our floor. The second way is it creates hot air that circulates through our ductwork. The third way it helps us is it heats our hot water in the hot water heater. So the water from the stove is carried underground to the house in a 1-inch PVC pipe, and we bury that in 2.5-inch conduit. From there it's split into 5 zones, and it circulates through this radiant tubing that is 1/2-inch PEX pipe. And the reason it's split into 5 zones is if it was just one continuous loop, it would lose most of its heat before it got from one end of the house to the other. So this way there's no cold spots, and it circulates back to the stove before it loses all of its heat. So here we are in the basement, and we're looking up under the first floor, and you see the radiant tubing that carries the water from the stove, and we have it looped around under the floor, between the floor joists. We actually have 5 different zones that carries this water, and this is what creates the radiant heat that heats the first floor and really heats our house pretty well. So the second way our wood stove provides heat for us, first way is the radiant tubing. The second way is this heat exchanger. So we have a supply line coming with hot water from the wood stove, and we have a return line, and in between there is a heat exchanger. So there's a system of coils inside this box that the hot water goes through and goes over, and our heat and air system, our air handler, will blow air across those hot coils, and will carry hot air all the way through our ductwork throughout the house, which is really nice. So on those cold nights when it's single digits or maybe even the teens, and the radiant tubing can't keep up with that, we'll flip on the air handler to flip on the fan and have really pretty superheated hot air coming through our ductwork. And after 30 minutes or an hour running on that, the house is really warmed up. So the third way our wood stove benefits us is it heats the water for a hot water heater. The hot water from the stove comes in this orange PEX pipe and it's pumped through this sleeve. This copper sleeve surrounds the copper pipe for the hot water heater. The two waters don't mix, but this sleeve surrounds that pipe and heats up the water for the hot water heater and is dumped back into the hot water heater. This is just a continuous cycle of the water for the hot water heater being heated, really just kind of superheated by the water coming from the wood stove. So some people have asked us about running the stove in the summer just to heat the hot water heater. And we tried that one summer, running the stove in the summer, and we decided the work and the wood and the effort was not worth the savings that we did see for a month or two running it in the summer. It probably did save a little money on the hot water heater, but it was not enough for us to keep doing it. So we only did it for 1 year, and that was our 1 year experiment. So let's talk about the pros and cons of having an outdoor wood stove. First thing is lower electrical bills. We've tracked our electrical bills since before we put in the wood stove and every month since then. And in this 5 or 6 months that we run our wood stove, we probably save $200 to $250 a month. Some winters are milder and some are a little bit colder. So some months we do better, it's more efficient and we save a little bit more money. But on average, it's over $200 a month, and so you have an electrical bill that's much better. Second pro is if you're used to having a wood stove in your basement, you know about the ash and the smoke, and you have bugs in your firewood in your basement. So this is much nicer. It's 100 feet away from the house, and you keep all that stuff outside. So another pro is it's really quiet. You don't have the heat and air system kicking on and kicking off. Another pro is you can tie this into the generator and have heat even if you have no power. So it doesn't take a lot of electricity, a lot of power to run the pump on the stove and run the blower fan on the stove. It's really convenient to have a generator set up, and you can have warm floors and warm heat even if the power's off. And the most important pro for us is that it's really comfortable. We have hardwood floors and tile floors, and this is just really the perfect heat for that. It's just a continuous radiant heat coming up, and it makes everything nice and warm and nice and toasty. All right, so let's talk about a few of the cons. The first con is the upfront cost. There is an initial investment of several $1,000s to get a system like this and get a stove put in like this. And we feel like going into it, it would probably take 8 to 10 years to get our investment back, and that's about what we've done. And now we're in year 13, so we feel pretty good about it. A second con is it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of firewood and a lot of Saturdays and days off to keep the woodshed full and get seasoned firewood. Yes, we enjoy being out in the woods and cutting firewood, but it takes a lot of work. So the third con is it does take a little bit of work. You have to keep the ashes cleaned out, have to keep the woodshed filled up. We've had to replace the thermostat once in 13 years and also replace a couple of the hoses. They're short hoses, but it just takes a little bit of maintenance to keep it going. So that's a little bit about our outdoor wood stove. I'm sure I haven't covered everything. If you got any questions, just drop those down in the comments. We'd love getting those comments, and we'll try to answer every one of the questions that come in. If you enjoy this video, hit the like button, click the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on Ouch Mountain.